Hey, beautiful souls.
Welcome to Bitter to Beautiful. I am Coach Charmin D, energetic, heartfelt, and always keeping it real.
And I'm Coach Lonette, more reserved, tenacious, honest, and a little funny,
Together, we're here to guide you through transforming your bitterness.
into something truly beautiful. Join us on this journey of healing and empowerment.
Welcome back, beautiful souls. This is Bitter to Beautiful podcast, and I'm your host, Coach Charmin D. Today's episode is close to home for so many of us. It's titled, The Legacy of Bitterness, How to Protect Your Children from Unresolved Family Pain. Whew. This one will tug at your heart because unresolved pain doesn't just stop at us, it echoes through our children.
Yes, it does, Coach Charmin. I'm Coach Lonette, and in this powerful two-part series, we're peeling back the layers of generational pain and how it shows up in our parenting, in our homes, and our children's emotional health. We're going to explore how our bitterness, if not surrendered to God, can unintentionally plant seeds of pain in the next generation. But here's the good news. Through Christ, we can break the cycle. Hebrews 12:15 says, "Look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Watch out that no poisonous fruit of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many."
Wow. Okay. So this verse is our foundation today. Bitterness isn't just an internal issue. It's a seed, and once it grows, it doesn't just affect us, it troubles many. That includes our children, who often absorb the emotional residue of all unresolved wounds.
All right, so this leads us to our discussion questions. Coach Charmin, what unhealed experiences from your past might your children be unintentionally witnesses or carrying? And then what would it look like to invite God into those places so that you don't pass that burden forward?
Wow.
Ooh.
Those are some deep questions. Lord help me, Jesus. And I can say that because I just experienced a conversation with my girls that who has shown God is able. Lord help me, Jesus. When I sit with this question, it hits me hard. Some of the things I thought I had tucked away, rejection, betrayal, the silent treatment I witnessed growing up, they didn't just vanish. My children may not have lived through what I did or what I've experienced, but they felt the residue because I was an impatient mom, the overprotector, definitely at times the helicopter mom. I did a lot to keep my children protected because of what I experienced when I was young, and I don't want to go into details, but it was interesting. But what I realized too is that there had to be a shift. Inviting God into the place that space doesn't mean that you have all the answers. It doesn't mean that. It means that you have to stop pretending. Because I think that's where I was at. You know, it's not enough to just try to protect your children from the experiences that you've had, because that's what you feel that needs to happen, but we have to be mindful of what it creates for them. And my girls were feeling some type of way because of the type of mom I was. I wouldn't let them go spend the night at friends' houses. If there was a brother or a father, no, they can come visit you at the house. Nope. And that created an issue for my children. But I'm a different person now, and they're grown, they're older now, but I know even in that I've grown, and I've cast those cares on unto God. I'm not, you can't be a helicopter mom of a 35-year-old and a 24-year-old, but you know what? Some people really, they can, some moms can be, but I've released them completely to God, and I've allowed God to heal me, heal those wounds that made me be the helicopter mom, that made me be the overprotector. And God has healed those wounds. And I don't sit stuck in bitterness about what's happened to me in my life. I'm able to move on and to know that all things work for good for those who love the Lord, and that God has he's close to the brokenhearted, and he's allowed me to move past the things and the experience that I had, um, breaking the cycle, because healing had to start in God's hands. It couldn't be me. It had to start with God. So that was a deep question, Coach Lonette. So I'll turn it over to you so you can answer, so you can respond.
Uh-huh. I had to think about this while you were responding. Um, if I can think of an unhealed experience, um, that my children have unintentionally witnessed or carried is, um, I would say, my voice not being heard. While my children can communicate well, I see in myself where I shut down, and the events that led to me shutting down. And they've experienced some of those events as well. But because I recognize it, I was able to say, okay, we have to build our communication. Let's build our vocabulary, because I don't want you to experience the inability to express yourself the way that I did. I don't want you to shut down the way that I did. And so while I did that work with them, there were some things in their life that happened that were similar to mine. And I've just had to pray and have a consistent message of, I need to hear what you have to say. And I've gotten to the point where I say, listen, you're a teenager. I just need you to get it out. We'll worry about, how you choose to express it later. Right now, this is a safe space, and I need you to get it out, and then we'll cultivate afterwards. And that's something that, even though things were done unintentionally, whether by me or others, I recognized it. And, you may hear this Coach Lonette, but this Coach Lonette was not this vocal before. I would choose my audiences, but I've learned to be in audiences with people that I trust and people that encourage me to speak up and to speak out more. And so now I do it with my children, and they hear me recording the podcast or listen to the episodes, and they're able to say, oh, if mom can do it, so can I. If mom can overcome being silenced, so can she. And so now this looks like inviting God in these places. I've invited him in these places, and I constantly pray that my children would not have to carry the weight of being silenced, because it is a weight when you cannot or don't feel empowered to voice your opinion or express yourself. I've been suppressed for a while. And unintentionally, I may have suppressed, we think that as parents sometimes, the things that we say don't mess with our children, but we really have to be mindful about the language that we use, whether intentional or unintentional. Just because you grew up with it doesn't mean that you have to repeat it, because it could, even though it may have been right in your parents' eyes, it was just wrong, generally speaking, and sometimes we can repeat those things unintentionally. So, but there's still room to correct them, no matter how old your children are, whether they're children or teenagers or adults. You can still correct it and be consistent with that change because you love them. So that's how I allow God to get in those places, one, by healing me and making the consistent message of, you have a safe space. If something is wrong, let's talk about it, get it out, and we'll work on the way you express yourself a little, afterwards. But it's important that you get it out in a safe space. And safe is very important and trusted. The Bible talks about having safety with a multitude of counselors, but they should be wise counsel.
Wow, wise counsel. We need to realize that breaking the cycle starts with definitely acknowledging what's going on. Healing begins when someone decides to confront and not conceal the pain. Honesty opens the door to generational changes. I like what you said, Lonette, how you want to have the conversation about it, how that's going to be the healing piece by you revealing it, you talking it out. Because what I realize is that a lot of the pain that my children experienced because of the way I was, because of the things that I've experienced, was because we didn't talk about it. And then when it came time to talk, all the defenses was up, because now you're trying to say I'm not a good mom. Now you're trying to say I didn't do that. So now I'm defensive because
Mm-hmm.
as a mother, I know all the work and all the stuff that I put in, and now you're gonna try to tell me, listen, breathe, breathe,
Mm-hmm.
take a breath, and break
Mm-hmm.
by sitting through it, acknowledging it, understanding it. Sometimes maybe just being silent and letting them speak, and
Mm-hmm.
not be ready to go to 150 from 100 to 150. But if you don't acknowledge, then that generational issue continues to be a cycle, and it goes, oh, and then it goes to their children and their children and their children and their children. Break the cycle by acknowledging it. Have the conversation.
I would say that. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Lana.
Yeah, have the conversation. I would say that this generation, especially whether millennial, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, they need validation. And sometimes previous generations don't give it because it wasn't given to them. And so validation is something that this generation really needs. And validation can look different ways. Validation in a conversation can be, I heard you, or what I hear you saying is A, B, and C. Is that correct? Did I understand? Because sometimes we think as parents that we understand, and not even as parents, as spouses in whatever relationship, that we think we understand the person. But I always tell people, read the room and read the expressions on people's faces, because it's telling. It's really telling, but we don't pay attention to the signs and the signals because we're getting what we need to get off of our chest. And I learned that in having conversations, even debates or quarrels, that you don't listen to respond, you listen to hear what the person is saying. And if we begin to do that, then we'll have less arguments and you won't have to get your point across. Now, while conversations should be fair, and you never know that just by listening, what you feel or what you think may be menial than what the other person is going through. So if we just stop being selfish for a minute and actually consider someone else's feelings in the conversation, I can guarantee you that the outcome can definitely be better.
Wow, that is true. That is definitely true. Yes, selfless, not selfish. When we are and understand that I need to be concerned. I may need to dumb me down and be concerned about how you're feeling and listening to it. That's really, I've learned, listen, can I just say, I am old school mama. I'll say it out loud, and was very proud of it. And that all had to change because these children are different. They are interesting. I'm just saying they're interesting. When bitterness becomes family legacy. Bitterness becomes generational when unresolved anger or pain, resentment seep into our parenting, communications, and our emotional environment. Children watch, learn, and internalize our reactions, and without intervention, they begin to repeat the cycle. We have to be mindful of how we move and what we say and what they see. We have to be mindful of that. Here's a scenario. A mother who never healed from being abandoned by her father becomes emotionally unavailable to her own children. Though she provides maternal, though
Materially.
right, though she provides materially, her child grows up feeling unseen, repeated the emotion, repeating the emotional neglect that started generations before. If I can say I have something very similar because of my relationship with my birth father, or my, you don't want to call him, yeah, I don't, yeah, with my birth father, I've had the same feelings. I don't want to say that I was emotionally unavailable to my children, but the abandonment made me opposite, made me overact, overprotect, because of feeling like my dad didn't love me, he didn't care about me, so I overdid it sometimes. So this is how it looks though. Overreacting to small offenses in parenting, speaking negatively about the other parent or family members in front of a child, modeling distrust, avoidance, or unforgiveness, emotionally withdrawal from loved ones, and justifying bitterness as a protection. But I was bitter, so I protected. I'm just saying. Thank you for the Jesus. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for Jesus. How to unmask and prevent bitterness. Scriptures, Ephesians 4:31-32, the NLT version. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger. Instead, be kind to each other, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. Strategies. Acknowledge what you've carried from your upbringing. Acknowledge what you've carried from your upbringing. You got to acknowledge it. Sometimes we want to put it in the backside. We don't want to acknowledge it. Seek healing through therapy, prayer, or wise counseling. Coach Lonette said wise counseling. Wise counseling. Invite your children into an age appropriate conversation about grace, forgiveness, and emotional honesty. Commit to modeling reconciliation, not retaliation. Don't be coming for people. I'm just saying, don't be coming for people. Coach Lonette, share some practical steps with us.
From the strategies that you read, Coach Charmin, the acknowledge what you've carried from your upbringing is big. That's really taking a seat and looking at the root cause of what your reactions may be, the things that you say, the things that you do, mannerisms that you have that may be offensive even to your children or your family. We have to take a look. I've had to apologize even for the unintentional things that I've said and done to my children because I didn't realize it. And there's something that they said to me. They told me that I didn't listen. And in my defense, I'm like, I'm a great listener. Like, what is wrong with you? And I didn't say that to them. But they kept saying, you're not listening, you're not listening. And I prayed and I said, God, what am I missing? What am I not hearing? Like, I'm sitting there and I'm listening, but I've learned that sometimes people want you to listen and not have a response. They just need to get it out. And while I did that with other people, they were my children. So for me, it was different. And so that should not be so. You have to really learn. We have to learn to meet people where they are. They just needed to vent. They didn't need me to come up with a cure or an antidote or anything. They just needed to get it out. And then what I've learned to do was, and some people may not want to do this, but it's helped me to say, okay, do you want me to give feedback? Can I provide feedback on what you said? And if it's no, then, I'll eat it and say like I'm burning inside, and I probably have the answer, but then they also have to learn how to figure some things out on their own, just like I did. Right. But I let them know that I'm here for you if you need to speak, if you want to talk about it further. At the very least, we can, not the very least, but we can pray about it. We can find some scriptures to go alongside it. But as long as that's what you need, that's the space that I'm going to provide. So we have to know that sometimes, even as parents, they don't want our feedback, they want the safe space. So, some practical steps, just as I said, create safe emotional space. The action could be start with 10 minutes a day where your child can talk freely without correction or advice. Just listen. James 1:19 says, "You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry." Number two is we can break the silence. The action is if bitterness runs deep in your family history, write a letter, sent or unsent. You can send it or not send it to the source of the pain, even if they are deceased. Process it in a prayer or with a counselor or with a good friend, right? Because I have a friend that has good counseling attributes or wisdom. Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Now for some statistics and some facts.
79% of children from high conflict homes report symptoms of anxiety, depression, or trust issues in adulthood. 79%. Studies show that children exposed to unresolved parental resentment are 2 times more likely to struggle with emotional regulation and future relationships. Do you see how much that counts against our children when we don't deal with unresolved pain and bitterness? Jeez. Okay. Here's the biblical scenario. Joseph and his brothers, Genesis 37:50. Joseph's brothers, consumed with bitterness, betrayed him. Yet Joseph, after enduring trauma, forgave and reconciled with them, choosing healing over hatred. His decision protected future generations and brought peace. He could have been, listen, he could have been mad. He could have took it out on them. He had every opportunity to. He did not. Here's a takeaway. You don't have to continue the pain that was handed to you. Like Joseph, you can rise above betrayal and bitterness and become a vessel of healing. Wow. Coach Lonette.
Bitterness is a heavy legacy, but it doesn't have to be yours. You have the power through Christ to break the cycle and create a new environment where love, truth, and healing flow freely.
Yes, that is so very true. Through Christ. Start small, pray often, and trust that healing is possible. If this episode resonates with you, please visit thebitterthebeautiful.com, subscribe to the podcast, and drop a comment. Drop comments. We love hearing how this apply. We love hearing how you're applying these truths to your own life. Until next time, stay bold,
stay beautiful, and stay blessed.
And remember, just because pain was just a starting point, it doesn't mean it has to be your legacy. Let me say that over because that was all jacked up. And remember, just because pain was your starting point doesn't mean it has to be your legacy.
As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude to you, our listeners. Transitioning from bitter to beautiful isn't just a moment, it's a movement, a continuous journey of transforming pain into power, one heart at a time.
And to all our first time listeners, welcome to the family. We are a community of souls committed to healing, growth, and transformation. Click on the link in the bio to subscribe to our mailing list and tune in every week. When you subscribe, you'll also receive information about our live pop up rooms on Clubhouse.
As we embrace life's journey and find the beauty in overcoming bitterness, remember, bitterness isn't beautiful, and your healing is just the beginning of a beautiful new chapter.
Don't forget, new episodes are released every Saturday. Whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or Listen Notes, there is a space for you here to find healing, inspiration, and strength.
Thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep embracing the journey, keep healing, and keep transforming. Here's to turning all our bitter experiences into beautiful victories. See you next time.